Hey gang, welcome back to another video. So one of my favorite childhood memories was going to the toy store to pick out a new Star Wars action figure. And even today, seeing photos of those 70s and 80s toy store displays brings a smile to my face. So this week, I'm going to try and capture some of that nostalgia and recreate vintage toy store packaging for all the small and obscure props I've made over the past years. So let's get into it.
The packaging for the original Star Wars toy line was largely developed in-house at Kenner's Cincinnati-based offices by designers like Jim Swearingen and Ray Persick, so that's where I'll start. After some online image searches, I was able to find high-resolution scans of some of the original packaging, and through a bit of Photoshop masking, I was able to create my own templates. I can swap out the background photo, as well as change the figure name, and of course I needed to add in my own branding. I also added this magenta background layer to the Photoshop file so that I can easily place new artwork into the template without also having to mask the image to fit the opening. But before I can do anything else, I need to find an image for the card. Thankfully, there are a few websites that have high-resolution screen grabs from the movies and TV series, and so I could find the perfect images for the props I'm making these card backs for and can add them into my template, adjust the framing, the name, and then save it for print. To make this process easier, I created a second Photoshop document at standard printer paper size, and then could add my 6x9 inch artwork to that page so that it will print at the correct size when I send it to my local print shop. This process was repeated for all 4 props I'm making the action figure packaging for, and then I waited for my prints to be ready for pickup. While I waited, I have a few props that weren't involved enough to make a full video about, starting with this Kodak camera service rangefinder, which was used as Obi-Wan's comlink in the Kenobi TV series. This rangefinder was produced in the mid-1940s by the Eastman Kodak Company and was designed to help photographers accurately measure focusing distance. And since I've got my oil paints out, I'm going to give this Episode 4 comlink a little age as well. This piece is a 3D print, but the original comlink prop is made from a pair of Reed model aircraft cylinders, as well as a 1970 Hovey Mix PA2 aerator. Originally, these were found as part of the Swirlerator sink cleaning attachment, but you might better recognize these as the mic tips from the Stormtrooper helmets. With the weathering done on those, and my card graphics back from the printer, it's time to take a look at my prints and then prepare them for mounting. Each print is slightly larger than the final packaging dimensions so that I have a bit of room for trimming. In the design world, this is known as a bleed. So I grabbed my paper cutter and got to trimming as close to that edge as possible. These will all get a final trim once they're mounted to the chipboard backing, but for now it's just about making sure I've trimmed right up to the edge so that the front and back artwork will line up correctly. I repeated this for both sides of the card, and then it was time for the chipboard backing. Because these props are heavier than your standard 3 3/4 inch action figure, I decided to use 1mm thick chipboard as the cardstock for my packaging. This should keep the card back from warping over time due to the increased weight and hopefully prevent me from ripping out its hook slot once they're on display. I'll start by covering part of the chipboard with Super 77 spray adhesive, and when it's tacky, I'll apply the print onto the board using the corner and 2 edges as my guide. You really want to make sure to push out any air pockets to ensure good adhesion of your print, and once it felt like it was thoroughly stuck to the board, I flipped it over and repeated the same steps for the back artwork, but not before double checking to make sure I put the print in the correct location. This part of the process moves pretty quickly, especially if you're doing multiples, and before I knew it, I had all 4 of my vintage card backs ready to go. Because there was a bit of overspray from the application of spray adhesive, I set the cards aside to lose some of that tackiness, and once they were able to be handled, I grabbed the paper cutter again and could trim them down to their final size of 6x9 inches. Now that all the cardbacks are cut down to size, it's time to round over the corners. The correct corner radius for the vintage figures was 10mm, so I tracked down a 10mm corner punch and got to punching. Of course, you could trim this by hand, but I figured since I'm this far down the rabbit hole, I might as well use the right tool for the job. While I'm here, I might as well add the hook slot. Now this tool has a few different names. Some call it a sombrero punch, some call it a hanger hole, and others call it a Euro punch. But regardless of its name, it gets added just left of center on the cardback to help keep the prop balanced once it's hung from a peg hook. The last part of this project comes in the form of some clear plastic vacuum-formed blisters to hold the props. Now I don't have a vacuum former, but thankfully my friend and fellow prop maker Jasper does. The process of vacuum forming starts with a buck. A buck is what's used to define the shape of the blister. For this project, I created my bucks in Fusion and then 3D printed them in ABS plastic since they'll be exposed to heat and I didn't want them to distort. Now that I have my bucks, Jasper can clamp a sheet of clear PETG plastic into a frame which then gets exposed to heat, which softens the plastic and makes it more pliable. Once the plastic sheet has reached its optimal temperature and is visibly bowing, he flips a switch to start the vacuum and drops the frame over the buck to create the blister. The vacuum then pulls the plastic tightly around the buck while also rapidly cooling the plastic sheet. And when the plastic is formed to the shape of the buck, the vacuum is turned off and the plastic sheet is removed from the frame. And finally, with the help of some compressed air, the buck is popped out of the plastic to reveal the final blister. Since my props are all different, he created 3 more blisters at the appropriate shapes and sizes, and then I can cut them out from the plastic sheets with some scissors. With my blisters in hand, it was time for final assembly. I'll be using tacky glue for this step, which is perfect for this application because it dries clear. It can, however, go on really thick, which then takes a long time to dry. So for this first pass, I tried brushing it on to see how long it takes to dry and found out quickly that it's much faster than I want. So rather than applying it by brush to each one, I applied a thin bead around the perimeter, and once it's set, I could use a hairdryer to speed up the drying process. When I had all the blisters in place and the glue almost fully dry, it was time to check out my work. Oh, and I can't forget this card back from Tommy of Nerds and Makers. He was able to crank out a card and blister for Leia's comlink prop before I'd even thought to do all of my small props this way. And while we're at it, let's add this droid collar prop that I made 4 years ago to round out the collection to 6. The only thing I need to do now is hang them from some peg hooks, and this project is done.
Now I have to say, having these props displayed like toys absolutely bridges the gap between kid me and adult me. And I can guarantee that any future small props I make will get the same exact treatment, because it really does capture that feeling. Well, that's going to do it for this one. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. But most importantly, go make something.